Hi guys, this is Kaylin, MarzGurl, as a lot of you probably know me online. I specifically wanted to make a response video to Linkara, who's also a member over at thatguywiththeglasses.com, and if you've not been paying attention to his blog for Atop the Fourth Wall and all his other side projects that he's been doing, I'm going to link you guys later on the sidebar. But it's located at atopthefourthwall.blogspot.com, so I can give you the links to that as well. As you'll notice here, you might hear some noises like that instant message right there, but I'm at my computer because I wanted to make sure I had the most accurate information when I'm discussing this. This really isn't scripted, although I did write a bunch of notes to specifically respond to Linkara and the issues he had regarding the Watchmen movie that just came out this weekend. So you'll notice I'm here at my computer, I'm looking at notes, I'm looking at the source material, so these are the things that I wanted to address for the time being. So, that having been said, again, this isn't really a review, this is more of a response to Linkara and his opinions. And as such, please realize that these are my opinions as well. Take them seriously if you want. I'm not going to take that too seriously, so sorry, I'm not here to start an internet fight with anybody. Pretty much the first thing that Linkara brings up is just issues with Zack Snyder, the director of Watchmen, also the director of 300. So this guy likes doing movie adaptations of graphic novels. So actually, I find that Zack Snyder is one of my favorite directors now, because having seen 300 and then picked up the graphic novel, I actually did not read the graphic novel for that first, but watched 300 first. And at the time I didn't like it, because I actually don't like things that are incredibly extreme! But having afterward read the graphic novel, I came to realize that, wow, for the most part, this is an incredibly accurate piece of material. So I was incredibly pleased with it. And then knowing that this was the director and having read Watchmen first, I was thinking, okay, fantastic. I'm really, really pleased and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's one thing to start off with. There's going to be some arguments coming up here that there were some inaccuracies, and yes, there were. It was a Hollywood movie. You really can't get past that. But for the most part, I really don't have any complaints. And if you ask any good friend of mine how I am about being a stickler for accuracy in movie adaptations of comics, cartoons, anime, etc., making the transition to Hollywood, I get kind of upset about things, and most of my good friends know that I am incredibly difficult to please when it comes to movies like this, and I really don't like comic book movies for the most part, and only recently have I really started diving into the world of comic books outside of manga. So really, I think you'll find that maybe I'm more pleased because I'm not a big fan of a lot of other comics, so maybe my view is a bit skewed. So just to let you know, that's kind of where I'm coming from. The biggest gripe, and this is not only from Linkara, he had a big argument with this, but I'm sure all the fans of the graphic novel are going to too, was with the ending. But really, despite the fact that sticklers for this comic would like to think that it's so off, it's really not something to be so concerned about. At least I don't feel that way. Because again, I'm usually a stickler for accuracy in the adaptation. So again, to spoil this, and again, if you haven't seen Linkara's video, you know, it's already been spoiled, so I'm saying it right now. This is a spoiler. Stop if you don't want it spoiled. The ending was changed. It's not a squid that lands dead in the middle of New York City killing millions. It is essentially nuclear-style activity going off in lots of cities around the globe, killing millions, still caused by Ozymandias, and still causing the world to come together in peace. The only problem is that, again, it doesn't involve a squid, and it does involve using Dr. Manhattan as a scapegoat, which at first when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, that's a little disconcerting. However, you realize though, after watching it and getting towards the ending of it, that really it did the exact same job that it served in the graphic novel, because the world was at peace. It was still actually Ozymandias' fault. In the end, Dr. Manhattan still leaves Earth and still gives the exact same reasons. I don't really like that he was the scapegoat, but it came to the same conclusion, that the world was at a false sense of peace, because it was really all based on a lie. Either way you look at it, it was based on a lie, despite the fact that it was this big giant dead squid instead of what it ended up becoming in the movie. So anyone who's complaining about that, I think you're trying to find something to complain about. And I apologize for any ums, other stuttering, dead pauses. I'd like to check up on my notes and make sure that I've gotten everything covered. Uplifting? Okay, Linkara makes an issue out of the ending of the movie being fairly uplifting. Maybe? Only if you consider Laurie and Dan, Silk Spectre and Night Owl. It's really the same as in the graphic novel. I mean, they go on and they live their own lives together. In the graphic novel, they go and they legally change their names so they can go and live their own normal life, just as regular individuals in society, just like they really should. And in the movie, while they did not bring up that their names were changed or anything, so I'm only assuming that their names were not changed, they're still perfectly happy together, and they're still talking to Laurie's mom and everything. It's still the same result, and they're still saying, well, so long as everyone thinks that there's something to be peaceful about together, then we're gonna be okay. That's not different than this book. That's really not any different than this book. I don't see where the difference is, other than Dr. Manhattan being the reason why they've all come together. Otherwise uplifting? It was around this section in Linkara's video that he brought up comparing V for Vendetta to this movie because of changes that were made, including the Wachowski brothers in on this. Now, and the Wachowski brothers actually, I gotta admit, I have not seen V for Vendetta, so I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about it, nor have I read the graphic novel. So again, I'm not going to pretend I know anything about that. But I am going to compare Speed Racer, which the Wachowski brothers did direct, and say that I thought that was a fantastic adaptation. And no one else seems to agree with me about that, because, I mean, did anybody watch the original Speed Racer when it aired in America? It was really accurate. They did anime-style things in that movie. They referenced Speed hopping out of his car and, you know, doing this fancy pose. They talked like a million miles a minute, and there was just stuff switching and changing and transitions all over the place, and I thought the Wachowski brothers did a really great job. And if anybody's going to continue to do anime adaptations into Hollywood movies, it should be the Wachowski brothers. So in comparison between the Wachowski brothers and Zack Snyder, these are the guys I want doing my movies. And anyone, again, who's complaining about their adaptations, and again, I'm leaving out V for Vendetta because I don't know much about it, you're looking really hard, and therefore you're really not enjoying the movie. I don't know, maybe you guys enjoy looking for things and picking them apart. Maybe you think that's fun or something, but when I see people like getting angry over that's really disheartening. And this is coming from me, okay? I do that. I know what that's like. I do. I really do. Because I'm somebody who will pick up a manga and then pick up an anime DVD and be like, huh, manga came out first. That's not what happened in the anime. But, you know, these things happen, and so, you know, coming from me, I think that should mean something when I understand that these changes get made. Linkara also brings up that throughout the movie, the masked marauders, I guess you could call them, all kept referring to themselves as Watchmen. And it's true, they don't ever call themselves Watchmen in this book. It's only people out on the streets who, like, write graffiti saying, "Who watches the Watchmen?" So, no, they should not really be calling themselves that. However, having double-checked the movie and other sources online, the title Watchmen never appeared on screen during the film. It was something I was kind of waiting for. Usually I wait to eat my food in the theater until I see the title on screen. And I never saw the title on screen. So having them say the word Watchmen every so often, I guess for stupid people, that kind of reminds them, oh, that's what movie I'm watching. So, but either way, when you really think about it, what did it alter in the movie? What did it really alter in the movie? Like, what did they actually call themselves in that meeting? Like, some other sort of silly crime-fighting name. Right off the top of my head, I can't remember. No, the Minutemen were the 1940s group. That changed. There was a meeting later, and they called themselves something different, but they did not call themselves the Watchmen. But either way, in the end, what did it change about the storyline? Really? And why would you really need to complain about something like that? It really doesn't matter. It doesn't change the ending or anything, that's for sure. So I have zero complaints regarding them referring to themselves as Watchmen. Linkara mentions Night Owl physically seeing Rorschach getting killed and therefore raging at Ozymandias, and that did not happen in the comic form. And as true as that may be, again, what greater effect did it have on the plot? Linkara argues that it changed the ambiguity of everything, and I beg to disagree, because in the end, really, despite the fact that Night Owl Dan is obviously angry at Ozzy, he still goes off and lives a normal life and chooses not to tell anyone, and therefore they're still living in a world where there's this false sense of peace. So obviously, despite the fact that he feels, oh, this is wrong, how wrong did he really feel? Because he didn't tell anybody. So again, it really hasn't changed much, and so therefore that argument, again, I disagree with Linkara about. He also brings up other additions that were made, including extending the intro to the movie. For example, the comedian has this nice big setup before he gets thrown out the window, but he didn't really complain about that, and really I can't either. The finding of the journal at the very end of the movie, where they're at the New Frontiersman publication studio, I guess you could call it, and Linkara mentions that it appears that the movie makes it sound like this makes everything sound like it's gonna be okay, which again I disagree with. You got the guy in the movie who is told, run whatever you want, it's your choice, and he goes and he looks over and, oh, here's the journal. Well, he doesn't pick it up, but you know, it's sitting there. So the camera pans over and there's the journal. That's not giving us hope. That's actually almost exactly the same as the last panel in the comic right here. As you can see, there's the guy, like, turning right over, and you can see his book right there. Either way, this guy could choose anything he wants out of this pile. And he could have chosen anything he wanted out of the pile in the movie as well. There's no difference. I really don't understand the argument. Wow, my voice is getting really dry. And, again, regarding this very last scene of the cowboy line Linkara brings up, it's a very nitpicky situation, just like a lot of these things have been. And the thing is, I can actually see why they did it. Linkara complains that the line changed from who wants a cowboy actor in the White House, quoting straight from the book, and it was changed in the movie to who wants a cowboy in the White House, dropping off the actor part, and therefore making you think, oh, they must be referencing George W. Bush. Which, okay, sure, they're referencing George W. Bush, but the thing Linkara missed is that in the movie, the kid in the end brings up, well, Ronald Reagan is running for president in 1988. Well, that's actually not what he's saying in this panel here. He says, Robert Redford says he'll be running for president in '88. Robert Redford was also another cowboy actor, and the joke that they were making is that they were referring to Ronald Reagan. They didn't even bring up Ronald Reagan in this. So the joke that they have now made is that they're comparing in the movie Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush, a cowboy actor to a cowboy. So I think that's fairly accurate. You're changing it for the reason that society has changed. No one knew who George W. Bush was during this publication, and they've made I think, an equivalent joke. It doesn't matter whether or not you thought that George W. Bush was a good president. I don't really care what your opinions are on him, and who are we to say what they were trying to tell us with that joke? All they were saying was comparing one cowboy to another. It holds no water on whether or not George W. Bush was a good president, and it is an equally substantial joke. Whether it's in this comic referring to Robert Redford, comparing Robert Redford to Ronald Reagan, or in the movie comparing Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush, the implied joke. It's the same. I'm sorry, but that's a very nitpicky argument, and it changes, again, nothing about the plot. I will agree with his comments on the Silk Spectre actress. She was a fairly flat actress. I will not agree with his opinion on Dr. Manhattan, because Linkara makes the argument that John was not supposed to be emotional, and that he should have been more Spock and Vulcan-like, which I disagree with, because John, Dr. Manhattan, was always human. He started as a human, and in the end, he really was just kind of a superhuman. The problem was, he was starting to lose his touch with society and his touch with human nature, because he had become something bigger than human. It wasn't that he was completely devoid of emotion, and it wasn't as such in the book either. So comparing him to Spock is not accurate. His subtle emotions, however, I felt were quite accurate and were just fine. And the fact that he went back to Earth at all to try to save Earth was because he still had feelings for Lori. And that was exactly the same in the movie as well. It is an equal comparison, so there's really nothing, again, to complain about. Bringing up characters again, Rorschach, again, very, very cool, and I do agree with Linkara about that too. And actually what's kind of cool is that I just learned that Rorschach, the actor, apparently lives around here, San Antonio-ish area, and shops at a local comic book shop. that's kind of cool. Other problems, again bringing up the ending that Linkara had, was when we started talking about the genetic engineering. And it's true that the nice little lynx does show up in the movie. That lynx cat that emerged with, like, I don't know, 2 different animals, and you get this really giant tiger with lynx ears. And so that obviously proves that there was genetic engineering that had happened. And he also even mentions during a press conference for some journal publication when he's printing this new line of toys for the masked men back in the 1940s and so on, he mentions that he had been working on genetic engineering, so we know that he had the technology. And no, he did not use that technology to create the squid. Do I miss the squid? Of course I miss the squid, it was in the book. But in the end, again, it didn't change the ending of the movie. It's really not something worth getting upset over. I could go on and on about that part, but I'm choosing not to here. Another problem that Linkara had that I do not have is with the slow down speed up effects. You would sometimes get and you'd get this slow down scene of a fist, you know, hitting somebody's face, and then once the connect was made, finish it up. I actually had no problems with it. I dislike that a lot of movies these days like to use that effect. However, when you're considering this as an adaptation of a graphic novel, what this feels like to me is actually it's trying to slow down and for a brief instant give us a little frame from out of the comic, just for a brief moment, and then it just continues because, duh, it's a movie. So, I appreciate it. I really think that's what they were going for. Can't say that that is. I'm not the director, of course, but I liked it and I appreciated it. And again, 300 did the same thing. And again, that was the same director. And again, it was a graphic novel. So, it was exactly the same. The sex scene, and if no one else, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You'll all know that, I think we'll all agree that that went on too long, and I do agree with Linkara about that too. That was softcore pornography right there. They made sure we knew that this person had a penis and this person had a vagina, and that they were going to put them together. That's for sure. They wanted us to know that, and it just went on and on and on. And the music of choice, hallelujah, hallelujah, was incredibly uncomfortable to sit through. Incredibly uncomfortable, and really I think a lot of the theater was laughing, or at least my row of people was laughing. Otherwise, if you're gonna complain about things about this movie, find the right things to complain about. The things that I'm a stickler on are gonna actually be costumes. Take, for example, Ozymandias's costume was entirely changed. He looked kind of fruity, but, you know, I can't say I disliked his outfit. He looked kind of either Grecian or Egyptian, you know, something along those lines. In the graphic novel, of course, I mean. But in the movie, however, he was wearing some Batman and Robin-esque suit that actually had, like, bat nipples on it. But, there we go. This is the suit that I'm talking about, and this is the suit that I miss. He admired, you know, the ancient people of brilliant people with brilliant minds who have completely changed our world, and therefore modified his own persona to match what he craved. And that's really not the kind of outfit we see him in later. Again, it looks very Batman and Robin, and definitely cartoony and comic book, that's for sure. But it's just not the same. The actor they got, too, while being a good actor, was very pretty. He was very scrawny looking and had a very feminine, pretty boy face. He was a good looking guy. I'm not gonna say he wasn't good looking, but all the same, it wasn't like this. It just wasn't. Also, Silk Spectre 2's outfit, I didn't really appreciate that it was almost entirely tight leather. I liked it better when it was kind of this silky, silky, kind of yellow top going over the black underneath portions, covering her naughty bits. I kind of thought that was more classy and actually kind of fit her name. Those are the kind of things that I personally complain about. And again, those are really small things. But again, in the end, they still weren't things that really changed the course of the movie. In fact, as a whole, I would say that this movie was an incredibly accurate adaptation of this graphic novel. So many of the scenes, they had the new frontiersmen in there. They had the same diners and everything. They got all of the coloring down correctly, all of the shading, all of the locations. It's all right here and it's all on the screen. If you're looking for something accurate to a comic book, you're not going to get anything more accurate than what we got here, this and 300. You're really not. So anyone, again, who's looking for something to complain about, that's what you're doing. You're looking for something to complain about if you're complaining. I think at about this point, I'm going to start going in circles. But again, I wanted to wrap up by saying, again, I read very few comics, so therefore perhaps my opinion is a bit skewed. However, I am a stickler for accuracy, and I really appreciate how accurate this was. Again, I am a fan of manga, I'm a fan of anime, I'm a fan of video games. So, like for example, when video game movies get created, who they boil, burn in hell. But honestly, this came out okay. And actually people should be excited because the Pirate comic is coming out to DVD, animated, and it looks like it's going to be fantastic. And I have heard through the grapevine that there's going to be all kinds of extra scenes that have been cut out of the movie that are going to make it on the DVD of this when it gets released. So whoever's worried about stuff that got cut, please hold out some hope for the DVD, because I know I'm excited for that. And if they have anything extended, whatever ginormous box set they might end up coming out with, I'm gonna get it. And I'm going to hold a lot of pride in it. And I do think that anyone who was a fan of Watchmen and is a fan of accuracy between original source material, making a transition to Hollywood, I think you should go out and see it. I really do recommend it. And basically what I'm trying to say is Linkara had some disagreements with me about this, but I can't say that I agree with them. And that's essentially my response. Thanks, guys.